Good morning, welcome to the channel, Retired Don't Give Up. It's another motorcycle wash day. Well, with the rainy season, obviously the motorcycle gets pretty dirty pretty quick. So today's topic. Well, I've had many people ask me why I call my channel Retired Don't Give Up. I may bore you with the next 20 minutes or so of my life history, but I'm going to try and explain that in somewhat detail. Hopefully it'll be interesting. Hopefully it might be give you a little bit of insight to things and life's journey and life's lessons and so forth. So let's get started. So I've always been an entrepreneurial type person. I mean, as a young child, I did the paper route thing, and my father bought a lawnmower, and his way of conning me into cutting the lawn was to allow me to take the lawnmower around and cut other people's grass. So I guess that was essentially, well, it would be the second business, because paper route was the first. I grew up in the 70s. I'm 66, 65 now. Of course, in the early 70s I was quite young, but towards the end of the 70s I came up with different ways of making money. One of those ways was in 1976, I was 16 years of age. I started a disco. Disco was big in that time. So I got fortunate to be able to buy some equipment. Let's go to backtrack. When I was 12 years old, I had a car accident. I was hit by a car. You're going to probably go through this video and go, he's not a very lucky person. And for the most part, I went through life not thinking I was a very lucky person at all. And it may very well be a true fact. Sometimes life just gets in your way and things happen. But at any rate, I was hit by a car on my way running. I was on my way to school. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I was chasing Robin Rossley. 50 some odd years later, I still remember his name. I'd never recognize him if I stumbled on him today. But at any rate, I ran across the road and a car hit me. I was military dependent. The ambulance came, took me to the military hospital, but they couldn't do anything for me. The ambulance then took me to the local town hospital, and they couldn't do anything for me. My mother, someone ran to the house and told my mother, and she ran, and the car was still over me. In fact, I remember waking up and seeing kids along the fence, and I couldn't understand what the heck they were looking at. As it turns out, that they were looking at me. But at any rate, my mother showed up and literally pushed the car off me. But the ambulance came, took me to the first hospital. It was a military hospital. At the time, they would not, they had nothing to do with civilians. So took me to the Pembroke Hospital. Pembroke Hospital just looked much, okay, he's dead, So, but I wasn't quite dead, but I was in and out. I had a fractured skull. My head hit the pavement. I was wearing a parka, and the hood was over, and the parka had a fairly thick top, and I believe to this day that's why I'm talking to you. But at any rate, they couldn't fly me to the city simply because of head injuries. They transferred me by ambulance to Ottawa, which was an hour and a half away. At any rate, long story short, I survived. But as it turns out, the guy that hit me was a drunk. And he was drunk at 8 o'clock in the morning. So my mother and father went through the procedures, and we sued him. Didn't get a lot of money. I think it was maybe $3,000. It was a lot of money in 1970, 72, 73. And I wasn't going to get that money till I was considerably older. At any rate, fast forward to 16. Two things happened. One, I got to go for a flight with Pim Air in their DC-3, and I really liked that. And there was a flying school at the airport. So right after we went on the flight, we went over to the flying school, and I got information on flying. 16 years old. I went home and I told my father, I said, I want to get my pilot's license. I could do that. I can start flying at 16. Now, some people would turn around and say, well, sorry, you're 16. That's just not going to happen. But as it turns out, I got this money. And my father thought, well, you know what? There's a good use for that money. So I started flying. And I got my pilot's license when I was 17 years of age. Along with that, I started a disc jockey company, Mobile Disco. And that was a good investment with the rest of my money. And it made a fairly good amount of money. In fact, it made $30 an hour, 4 hours a night, $120 a night. In 1976, 1977, $120 for 4 hours work was, well, it was extraordinary. And I was I was 17 at that point. 17 years old, making more money than, well, my teachers. That's not a good combination. But anyway, also I had my pilot's license. So you can imagine that, I was pretty popular with the ladies. And I certainly enjoyed that. I took lots of people flying, doing the discos. Yeah, it was a fun time in the 70s. I had a van, custom van. It was the second van I had. First van was not much of a vehicle, but it was good enough to move my equipment around. But the second van, well, I paid more for it, and I started to customize it. And that's what they did in the 70s. That only lasted till I was 19 and a half, almost 20 years of age. And I sold that business. Again, I sold it because someone handed me $5,000. Frederick was his name. Thing is, again, you hand a 19-year-old $5,000 in 1979. That's enough for 25% down on a house. So again, we're talking some serious money, and it was too easy to take. So I didn't turn it down. I took it. Found myself shortly afterwards in my custom van driving to Alberta to look for my next adventure. I was there for a few months. Winter came. Life was not what I expected. I had a couple of jobs, but came back in the middle of winter, homesick, I guess. So came back. Along that time, I got a job working for a welding company, and I traded in the van. I bought a Camaro. Yeah, 21 years old now. 20 years old, and I had this little sports coupe standard. Had that for a year and a half. I drove it like a maniac. Lucky I didn't kill myself in it. I got another job. I got hired on the base, which is the army base, and it was it paid $6.19 an hour. Well, doesn't sound like much, but in 1981, minimum wage was $3.65 an hour. So, yeah, there we go. I worked in the labor shop, and because I had skills, was considered somewhat skilled, they would send me to different shops. They would send me to the carpenter shop, the electrical shop, the plumbing shop, and as a helper, trades helper. And to me, that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I got a taste of all those different trades. Along this time, in 1981, the interest rates rose considerably. One of my best friend's parents, they had moved out. They lost their house, from the interest. So yeah, it was pretty bad. But so no one was buying anything. But me, well, you're 21 years old. I decided I needed to go and buy a Corvette. So I found this. I basically saw this Corvette on the car dealership, the car lot, and I went in and, well, went for a drive in it. He wouldn't let me drive it. Went for a drive. He told me it would be $10,000, which was a lot of money then. It was a 1973 Corvette LT1. So yeah, it was a nice car. He told me it only had, the odometer was only showing 35,000 miles, but yeah, as it turned out later, that was a lie. It had 135,000 miles. I ended up buying that car. And, well, I loved it. There's no doubt about it. But unfortunately, I couldn't really afford it. And with 24% interest, which I was paying, I was literally paying $300 a month. So that didn't turn out too well in the long run. I kept it for 3 years. And during that time, I changed jobs, and I went to the water filtration plant that supplied water to the base and of course to the village on the other side of the river. At any rate, that was a very profitable job. My wage jumped from $6.19 an hour to over 11. So yeah, that's why I was able to keep the car. But unfortunately, there was problems. I ended up with problems with the car. I ended up with I turned a bearing, and unfortunately, you find out that not all people are honest. And the guy that was going to fix it, apparently new Corvettes, well, he took the motor out and he changed it for a truck motor. He charged me $1,000, and yeah, I got taken pretty bad. And then, of course, no sooner did I have that, I decided that I was going to trade the car in and buy a new car because, well, it was just the way it is. So I ended up buying a brand new car, brand new 1984 Cutlass Calais, beautiful car. Fortunately, it was $16,000, 21 years old. Anyway, life went on. I had a girlfriend, and well, she needed to go to school, and she needed to sell her car, and I was an idiot. So I sold my car back to the dealer, gave her money for her Mustang so she could go back to school, went to Ottawa, 100 miles away from where I lived, and then broke up with me. Yeah, I'm sure you've all had those stories. So, at any rate, I continued to drive that car. In fact, the motor went in it, and oh, that was not fun. But put a new motor in it and drove it simply because, well, I couldn't afford it not to. So years started going by working at the water filtration plant, and several of the men that worked there were all considerably older, and I quickly became, well, one of the ones that were going to be there for the duration, I thought. In fact, my boss started to basically prepare me to replace him in about 2 more years, and I would become the supervisor of that water plant. And that would have been a pretty good career, but didn't happen. Another gentleman got hired with a little more experience, but more so, little less scruples. So with a little bit of effort, it was a competition to basically get rid of me or make me look bad, whether it was warranted or not. But the bottom line is, when my boss retired, they brought in another person to basically be the supervisor, because they didn't want to make a choice between myself and this other person. After that happened, I thought, well, there's no upwards to a future there, and so I left and I went to the ministry. Yeah, and that was a major mistake. That's a job. That's a story in itself. Basically, going to tell you, I went from the Department of National Defence back to the ministry to provincial. The supervisor that was at that water plant and sewage plant, well, I'm pretty sure he offered the job. He promised the job to a girl that was working there, and they did not expect me to show up, and I did. And well, it took them a month to get rid of me. So again, there's a story in itself. Now we'll just move on. Shortly afterwards, got lucky. I ended up working at Atomic Energy. And yeah, well, that would have been something, but it was a term position. It was not a permanent position. It was only for 6 months. Meanwhile, I got the flying bug again. Met my old flying instructor at the airport, met one of the hotshot pilots of PEM Air, and he told me, you need to get your multi-instrument rating and a personal pilot check on the King Air, and you'll have a job in no time. You're hearing all the things you want to hear. What happened was that there was a shutdown on the job I was at, and it was going to be a temporary shutdown for 2 or 3 months. So I decided I'm going to take advantage and go and start the multi-instrument rating, which I did. Now, where did I get that money? Well, it turns out my pension that I worked, when I worked for the 9.5 years at the base, if you're there over 10 years, your pension is frozen. If you're there before 10 years, I was able to remove my personal contributions. Whoa, think about that. That would be giving me right now about another $1,000 a month to my pension right now if that hadn't happened. But it did, and off I went to Kingston, started flying, and yep, I stayed. I quit Atomic Energy. I could have stayed there, and I could have ended up with a full career there. The timing just wasn't right. The knowledge just wasn't right, and there's something right there. Everyone wonders what's the secret in life, thinks it's money, so forth. No, the secret in life is knowledge, and the varying factor is timing. And I'll probably touch on that a few times. But at any rate, I didn't see a permanent position at Atomic Energy, so I decided to pursue the flying, and I got the multi-instrument rating. applied for jobs all over Canada. Went and got my float endorsement also. Couldn't, and then I couldn't find a job. Well, I sent resumes right across Canada, but the thing is, I had the qualification, but you don't have the experience. You don't have the hours. And it was 1979, and I'm at the end of the baby boomers. I was born in 1960. The baby boomers started in 1945 after the war. So we're only talking 15 years. So, and I use this as an excuse. And the truth is, you can always go back to yourself saying there was procedures that you did not follow. Again, knowledge. So all the jobs were basically taken up by the older baby boomers. And again, there wasn't a whole lot going on in 1980. I mean, the interest rates were still high. There just was no jobs. I am now unemployed, looking for a flying job, which I can't find. And my wife, at the time, I got married in 1987. During that period of time, I have to backtrack a little bit. We got married in 1987 in the summer, August, and in October of that year, 3 months later, I had to go to work, and it was a miserable, cold, rainy night, and unfortunately, the house burned down. We were living in a beautiful A-frame home on the Ottawa River. Another thing I purchased in that period of time is I purchased a sailboat. Like I say, life was pretty good. My wife and I, we made good money, and there you go. So I had a 25-foot sailboat and not a new truck, but a truck. But later found myself unemployed. The house had burned down. We had bought another house, and it was just one thing after another. At any rate, my wife wanted to leave and go back to the city, and so I basically followed her, kept looking for jobs, and at this point I was starting to get into woodworking. When the house burnt down, I thought it would make more sense to build some of the furniture instead of purchasing it, just because we didn't have the money. And again, these were where I started to learn cabinetry and so forth. So I followed her, and not much longer after moving back to Ottawa, she got pregnant. We bought a house in the country in Ottawa, beautiful little house, got a good deal, and started renovating it, set up a shop in the basement. And our son Nicholas was born. Unfortunately, our son Nicholas was born with only one kidney. We didn't find that out for 2 months. And once we did, we were able to change the formula, and he certainly seemed to be improving and so forth. But my wife's birthday rolled around, and we had her sister was going to be the caregiver when she would go back to work. So they did a trial run. They decided they were going to have, she was going to go to lunch with her mother, and she was going to take Nicholas over to her sister's place. And of course, I'm continuing to work in the basement, building furniture, slowly making a little bit of money. The doorbell rang. Please. We need you to come with us. No idea. We have to go to the hospital. So I'm in the hospital. Now, my sister-in-law has several kids. And when my wife dropped off Nicholas, she took him into the room, put him down for a nap on his stomach. We never put Nicholas on his stomach, especially with the kidney problems and so forth. And at that particular time, it was on your side, and we were learning these things. Now, this was also in December, and it was cold. And the thing is, you've got a baby that's all wrapped up. She had him all wrapped up, put him down on his stomach, and an hour later, he was dead from SIDS, sudden infant death. So I'm on my way to the hospital, and I find out that my son has died. And that was yeah, that was very hard. We went through a lot of things after that. My wife got pregnant again, had a miscarriage. Along that period of time, I got a offer to go and work for the elevator company. My father-in-law was an elevator mechanic, and he got me into the union. And so I got on. I got on with a company, one of the smaller companies. And I thought, you know what, this is pretty good. It was good money. Mechanics made a good living. Working with my hands, I like this. About 2 weeks into working for this company, I get a phone call from the city of Ottawa. I had applied to the city to look after their swimming pools around the city. And because of my qualification at the water filtration plant and with pools and so forth, I was very qualified for that particular job. They were essentially offering me the job. Well, here's where I come into the knowledge and timing. Well, I already had the job. I was working for the elevator company. I thought I liked it, and I thought there was a career there. So I told them, I'm very sorry. I think I have a career with the elevator company, so I'm going to turn down a job with the city of Ottawa. Went back to work the next day. I was there for about a month. And then, well, it's union. I got bumped. I never got called back. Timing, right? Timing. If I had only known, I would have definitely not had turned down that job for the city. At any rate, carry on. We're now in Ottawa. And my wife had decided that she had had enough. She had a miscarriage. And, well, we just had a really, really run of just bad luck. Really, not much I could say about it. It's just the way it went. So we parted ways. We sold the house. I rented a shop. I couldn't afford to live. I couldn't afford an apartment and a shop at the same time, so I built an apartment in the shop and started my business. Of course, was never a businessman, so yeah, that's something in itself, a business in itself. But at any rate, years went by. Did I do all right? Not really. I did okay. Unfortunately, it was always a struggle. Along the time, I found out that I had cancer. Melanoma. I have a big hole in my chest. And I just basically said I had enough. Well, I filed for bankruptcy. The business was in bad shape at that time, so I filed for bankruptcy and I lost the business. But I always found a job. I had skill, so it didn't matter where I was, what I was doing. There was always a job there. And I started working for a marina. And we prepared boats for sale, which was lots of fun. Got to go out and ride them and so forth. And they needed someone to go and deliver the boats. They had a great big tractor trailer and a hydraulic lift trailer to pick the boats up out of the water. I managed to get my A license, and I did that for a couple of years. I drove, went to different marinas, picked up boats, had a lot of fun. And I enjoyed doing boat work and so forth, and I continued with that. I ended up getting married again. Not sure why I had to do that again, but I did. I married a really nice girl, and she worked in a cafeteria. Nothing special. Her father, Baptist, give you the shirt off his back. What an amazingly wonderful man. Had lots of faults, like we all do, but he was the salt of the earth. He loved the fact that I was self-employed, and well, not at that particular time, but he had been self-employed. He had a business when he was younger, so he appreciated when I was in business before, and then I went bankrupt. In fact, he helped me out with the bankruptcy. And well, we bought another house. It was an old farmhouse, and it had a big barn. And I started my business again under a different name, DK Millwork. Before it was Clark Custom Woodwork. And well, it didn't do too bad. Did pretty good, actually. So fast forward, we're living out in this old farmhouse. I had renovated the barn, beautiful shop, and I wanted to stay there forever. But my wife, she did not like it there at all. She had tried to learn to drive, and she couldn't. She just could not pass the test. We ended up separating, amicable. It took a long time to get it settled, but I continued to run the business. The business was up and down, up and down. One year I'd be doing really well. I had several employees. Another year, I barely had one employee. I got offered to take over a cabinet shop for an insurance company. Basically, an offer of a job. I met with the manager. I told the manager what I wanted, and so I started doing all the work for that company, and eventually sold the business to Belfour. And I worked for Belfour for 11 years. I didn't start the pension there until the last 4.5 years. I do have a pension from them, which is really good. But I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and I was renting the house, and they basically destroyed the house. And when I decided I wanted to sell the house, they moved out, and I went back into the house. It was an absolute shambles. Cost me, I can't remember how much, but it was thousands and thousands of dollars to redo, all the damage. New people moved in, and they weren't there 3 months. When they just up and moved out. Suddenly we're coming into the winter time, and I couldn't find anyone to rent the house, and I ran into lots of problems with freezing, with keeping the heat on. And yeah, it was a really, really rough time. Found a tenant, and unfortunately they moved in, but unfortunately it was too late. The septic system had frozen, and yeah, it was pretty bad. All told, that year, all that damage cost me over $20,000, and it really put a major dent in my in whatever little bit of money I had, put me behind quite a bit. And so that summer I was forced to sell the house, which is a shame. But that's what happened. And water under the bridge, and it's done. I moved into an apartment and worked for this insurance company, and it was a job. It paid well. But I did not like it. When you're working for yourself most of your life, it's difficult. But I lasted 11 years. Many things happened during that period of time. I lost weight, gained weight, got new knees, and so forth. And of course, found out that I had an enlarged heart and went on disability for the last 2 years. And, well, then I found myself here. What have I learned? Well, I've learned that life, you can blame other people for the things that happen in your life, but the truth of the matter is, sometimes just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're just somewhat unlucky. And a lot of that can come down to your situation. Your situation, it could be dire, and then you make decisions. And when you don't have the right information, you don't end up working for the city for some odd years, or you don't stay at Atomic Energy and retire with a full pension. These things happen, but this is part of life. Do I regret any of it? Well, I miss my son. I have my stepson from my second wife. We did not have children. She was already had her tubes tied, so there was no getting pregnant from that. So that didn't happen. But he's a great man. He's a great friend, and I consider him my son. So the thing is, things fall into place when you look back. I mean, I came here with basically no ties. And, if things had gone differently, I would have considerably more ties, and maybe I wouldn't have been able to come here. But the bottom line is, one thing I never did is I never gave up. Whatever comes your way, whether it's good or bad, you just need to, you fall down, you get up, brush yourself off, and you go on. Because if you don't, well, you end up sitting in a basement, drinking, and slowly dying. And that wasn't for me. And I'm here now, and it's going to be 2 years in November. I've got 170 videos. I thank all of my subscribers, and I hope, if you haven't subscribed, that you do subscribe. I have a video coming up very shortly on these sidebars. Lots of stuff happening. Life here, it's not perfect, but life here is better than what it would have been had I given up on any one of those events that occurred during my life. So here I am. That's my life in 20 minutes. And that's why I call my channel Retired Don't Give Up. Until next time, bye for now. And remember, don't give up.